George, I found this really great home. I want to buy it, but the interest rates are so high and the mortgage payment is more than I thought it was going to be. Does it make sense for me to buy down the interest rate? Well, thanks for coming into thecreditjungle.com today. This is George Anderson.
George of the jungle, strong as he can be.
So I'm going to refer here, there's a differentiation that has to be made when you're talking about buying down the rate. First of all, there's a permanent buy down where you take the rate from where it is today and you want to take the rate down some increment and then have it be that rate for the entire term of the loan. That's a permanent buy down, and I've done a video that talks about the difference between a permanent buy down and a temporary buy down. All I want to do right now on this video is discuss what your decision processes should be when you are considering a permanent buy down. So we're going to use an example of a $500,000 loan, and we're just going to say that current rate's at 6.75%. Somebody says, "Wow, that's quite expensive, George. Would it make sense for me to come up with an extra $5,000 or 1% of the loan amount to buy down that interest rate? How much would that lower my payment?" Well, in the example that I'm providing here, your payment by spending that extra $5,000 would reduce it from 6.75 to 6.375, 6.375. So 3/8 of a percent, and it's going to be that 6.375% for the next 30 years. The cost to do that is $5,000. It's a one-time fee. Okay. How much does that save you per month? Well, in this example, it saves you $123 a month. Now, this is calculations that I do with borrowers all the time, and I'll sit there and I'll say, "Great, yeah, let's go ahead and pull it up. Let me figure out what the numbers are, and then I'm going to ask you two very important questions." So we find out that paying that $5,000 will save you $123 a month. Well, what we have to do is look at that break-even point. If we take $5,000 and divide it by 123, it's just over 40 months, okay? So that is 3.5 years, roughly 3 years and 4 months, if you will, that you're paying an upfront fee of $5,000 to save $123 a month. You are not going to break even on your $5,000 bet, okay? And it's a bet, until almost 3.5 years from now. So once somebody has those numbers, here are the important questions that you have to consider for yourself. I'll say, okay, well, your break-even point's going to be 40 months. Do you think you're going to stay in this home for 40 months? Oh, well, I don't know. Maybe they got transferred in from someplace. Maybe they've got a history of being moved around with their job every 2, 3, or 4 years or whatever. He says, "Well, you know what? I don't know. I could be transferred again." And I said, "Well, you need to understand that what you are doing is that you are placing basically a $5,000 bet on the casino that I'm going to be in that home long enough to be able to beat my 40-month break-even curve on it. And if you know for a fact that you're going to be in that home for at least 5 years, well, then that starts to make it look like the bet could be a fairly good bet to make." But then I ask them the second question. "Mr. Homeowner, okay, so now you know that you're going to be in this home for at least 5 years. Here's my second question. Do you think that within the next 40 months, there might be an opportunity to refinance to an interest rate that's lower than 6.375 that would not cost you additional money to do that refinance?" Well, at that point, they're like, "Well, I don't know. What do you think, George?" Well, what I think is that you have to look at, see where rates are historically and where they have been over maybe like the last 10 or 20 years. Well, I can tell you that over the last 20 years now, we are at historically a little bit on the higher end since probably, definitely within the last 20 years that we're up there. The average rate is a little bit lower than where we're at right now. Do I think we're going to see COVID era rates in the 2s again? No. But if those rates came down to where you could get 5.5%, a 1% or 1% or more drop on a $500,000 loan is worth refinancing if you run the numbers on that, because that full percentage drop in the payment is gonna drop your payment by about $300. Well, if your closing costs are only maybe, $3,000 or $5,000, well, now your break-even period is much shorter and you're in pretty good shape on that. So now you've got to evaluate both of those things. A, am I going to be in the home past the break-even period? And B, during that break-even period, do I think that there's an opportunity for the rates to drop enough that it would make sense for me to refinance? Because remember, and this formula, whether the rates are at 7 or 6 or 5, okay, the relative algorithm of buying down the interest rate is you're typically going to be somewhere between 3 and 4 years on a break-even point for that, because that is the risk that you are basically transferring on to the bank. And they're they'll say, yeah, we'll lend you money at as low of a rate as you want to borrow it at, but we're going to charge you so much money up front that we're still going to get our current rate of return in a 3 to 4 year period when they expect to service that loan for. So again, you can always go in and place a bet against the casino and win, but you have to understand what are the factors on your side that are determining your bet. So if you're comfortable that you're going to be in the home for 5 years and you think that within the next 3 years the rates are going to drop, well, keep that $5,000 in your pocket and do not spend the money on a permanent buy down. So hopefully that helps you with that decision. Thanks for coming into thecreditjungle.com. This is George Anderson. You can push button, get mortgage professional, and I'd be happy to structure your financial transaction on your next mortgage that works the best for you and what your short-term and your long-term goals are with that home and with the financing on that home. Take care and have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.